It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and if this is your first time tuning into this program, first of all, welcome, but let me tell you a little bit what this show is all about. I've been in real estate for 12 years. My team and I have sold about 1,000 homes in the Charleston market, and I take my experiences, some stories that I share, and of course, reflect on the market to help better prepare you, the listener, somebody that might be interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. I help you become more educated in the process of buying and selling real estate. I help you better understand the market, and I help inform you so that when it comes time for you to call a new place home, you know the right questions to ask, and of course, you're more informed than the next guy. Hopefully, you get a better deal on a home that you buy, or you make more money on a home that you sell. That's the whole point of this program, is to educate you. So, welcome. Let me tell you what I want to talk about over the course of the next hour. You know, maybe you are a person that is thinking about selling your house, but you can't really find a property to move into, and you would like to explore or at least know more about some kind of unique strategies that you can use to still have your home on the market without selling it and basically being homeless. What are some alternate closing strategies, things like selling your home and then renting back from the buyer or doing a delayed closing? And buyers, we're going to talk about moving into a property early before you close on it. Is that a good idea? We're going to talk about it from both the buyer and the seller perspective. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that I'd like to share with you that just help make things easier. I want to talk for just a little while about a few key points that are designed to just make this process simpler for people, buying and selling real estate. There are a few things I'd like to share that I think you really want to know about. And then lastly, we're going to talk about lowball offers and rejected offers. Should you reject offers? When is an appropriate time to make a lowball offer? So on and so forth. So that's the plan over the course of the next hour. Now, if you'd like to reach out to me personally, you're interested in having a conversation with myself about hiring my team to help you buy or sell real estate, my phone number is 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can learn more about myself and my team, who we are, what we do, what we sell, read some testimonials, search the MLS. Of course, you can learn more about what we do to sell our properties. And as I mentioned last program, which is an incentive we're running through the end of the year, if you hire my team to help you sell your house, we will pay for a pre-listing inspection. That is in addition, of course, to all the professional photography and videography and virtual tours and international marketing. All those things are included, no cost to you. So listingsincharleston.com for more information, or, of course, call or text 843-345-1273. So I want to start first by telling you a little story. And we're going to talk about, occupying a property prior to closing. Let's say that you're a buyer and, you're being kicked out of your old place. Let's say you were renting a place and your lease is expiring at the end of the month, and you're not due to close on the house that you're purchasing until maybe the 5th of the following month. And you have 5 days where you either need to get a hotel or find a friend to stay with, or maybe you ask the seller if you can move in early. So let me tell you a little story. And it ends well, and bear with me as I get through it, but I want to tell you the full story just so that you can really take some things away from it, whether you're a buyer or a seller. So a few years ago, represented a property. It was a vacant house, no furniture in it, nobody lived in it. It was actually an investment property for the owner. They had already bought a new house and had moved out of it, which I did not help them with. They had their home listed with another real estate agent for, I think, 6 or so months. It didn't sell. They hired us. We put it under contract in a few weeks. So we put it under contract. We got the home inspection. We made a few repairs. The appraisal was all good. The lender was, slightly behind schedule, which is normal. So overall, it seemed to be a pretty straightforward deal. Nothing really out of the ordinary. And both parties decided to allow the buyers to move into the property since they were living with their parents. And, it was their first place. Closing was only a few days away. The sellers were older, very, very nice people. And they just thought the world of these buyers. And let me tell you something really quickly. In my time in this industry, if it has taught me anything, it is that the moment you allow somebody to apply leverage to a situation that potentially helps them while potentially harming you, means that you have lost, or you're at least at a bare minimum in a very precarious situation. The deal is not done until all documents are signed and the cash is in the bank. All right, so maybe a little foreshadowing here, but so anyways, we're getting through the process, and we did a walkthrough before they moved in. And by the way, I advised against this. I said this is not a good idea. Let them stay with their parents a few days longer. It's not the end of the world. These buyers just want to get out of there because they're really excited, and they should be. It's a very exciting process and time for a first-time home buyer. But I do not suggest you let these people live in your home before closing. Well, the sellers decided that that's what they wanted to do, and these were some nice folks. And anyways, we did the walkthrough right before they moved in. We got a security deposit from them. And we said that from the moment they moved into the property, that home was going to be sold in as-is condition, and that unless damage occurred that was, through no fault of the buyer, the sellers would be responsible only for things that were outside of the buyer's control. The buyer was accepting the property in as-is condition. This was reflected in writing. And then 2 days before closing, I get a phone call from the other agent. She said her buyer just called her, and she said that, must have been some sort of roof leak or something, because the buyer woke up in the morning and there was water coming through the dining room ceiling, which had, damaged the drywall and some of her furniture. And so, of course, I immediately called my client and told him what was going on, while my listing manager called one of our contractors to meet us out at the property immediately. And we got there, and mind you, this is a 2-story house. So the first thing we do is we go upstairs, we try to find the source of this supposed roof leak, and we don't see anything on the ceiling upstairs. And right above the ceiling in the dining room is a bathroom. So we open the door, and there's a bunch of standing water on the floor in the bathroom. So of course we were like, well, what happened here? The buyer said she had no idea what was going on, and that no one in her family had reported any issues in the bathroom, and she was just adamant that something was going on, that we were hiding something, that this leak was, something my clients should have known about. And she was kind of guessing that this had probably happened before. Like, this wasn't the first time something like this had probably happened. In other words, she accepted no responsibility for the issue. She wanted the sellers to fix all the damage, and she wanted the sellers to replace all of her dining room furniture, which was about $10,000, according to her. So obviously this resulted in a huge argument. The buyer agreed to accept the property in as-is condition, which was reflected in writing based on the addendum they signed. But the buyer refused to acknowledge the addendum. I mean, they were saying that we didn't disclose some sort of issue. Now, keep in mind, we've already done a home inspection, and the toilet upstairs was working perfectly fine at the time of the inspection. But to the buyer, it didn't matter. She was not going to close unless all repairs were made by the seller and she received a credit for her dining room furniture. And come to find out, after a plumber investigated this issue, we learned that the buyer's son had his girlfriend over the night before and flushed something down the toilet that doesn't go in the toilet, if you catch my drift. And so now ultimately, we got the deal done, but it delayed closing by several days. I mean, there was a ton of arguing back and forth, threats to involve attorneys, threats not to close. It was just an emotional roller coaster for both parties. And I'm sure, specifically for the sellers, obviously, but I'm sure it was an emotional roller coaster for the buyers as well. The thing with the sellers is the sellers really needed the money, and they felt like they were being taken advantage of. They told me in confidence that they were desperate, and they were going to go ahead and offer to settle with the buyers, and they were going to give them $6,000 so that they could just get the deal done. And that was a tough conversation to have with them. You know, on one hand, I totally understand their point of view, and I knew that, you know, they had a high level of motivation to sell, but they never really told me how dire their situation actually was. They're older folks. They were kind of private. They didn't think it was appropriate to, you know, appear desperate, which again, I totally understand. And I told them to just trust me on this one and to not waste their money with some sort of settlement. You know, I've been through this too many times, and I've been through too many issues like this to allow my clients to get taken advantage of because this is some sort of quick fix that would just get everybody to the closing table. I mean, the sellers had all of the advantages. You know, a home inspection report with no issues, a document stating that by occupying the property, the buyer was agreeing to purchase it in as-is condition based on the condition of the home the day they moved in. And they had a few $1,000s in earnest money still on the table because we hadn't closed yet. And if they really wanted to, you know, we could state that the buyer was in default of contract because the property had been damaged by the buyers and they'd refused to fix it, which obviously could result in not just an eviction, but a potential lawsuit for specific performance and damages and all of this stuff. So it was a bit of a nightmare situation. Obviously, it doesn't always work out like that, but I am not a big fan of letting, especially if I represent the seller, I'm not a big fan of letting people move into the house before closing. It just gives them too much control. And once this happened, I kind of just said, you know what, never again, unless we can create a scenario that's so darn attractive for the seller that it just makes sense. But as a seller, you know, there's a few lessons to take away from this story, at least in my opinion. And that is, the first is that business is business. Until the buyer has, you know, signed on the dotted line and that cash is in your bank account, do not take anything for granted and protect yourself contractually. That's what a good real estate agent helps you do. The second, which I have kind of lived my life by in this business, and it served me very well, is to be friendly, but you don't need to be their friend. You know, don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of by sharing information that can be used against you, or by putting yourself in a situation where someone has leverage over you. And the third is that, you know, an agent's value, in my opinion, the agent's value is really exposed when something in your transaction goes wrong. There are very few closings per year that, in my opinion, would be defined as like the perfect closing. 90% or more of the time, there are issues we need to address and problems we need to resolve, which requires both creativity and it requires some outside of the box thinking among the agent, but it requires experience. You know, the ability to be creative and effectively problem solve is a direct result of their level of experience. And by experience, I'm not necessarily talking about the agent that's been licensed for, 20 years and they've sold 100 homes over the course of that 20-year period. I'm talking about an agent that has seen a bunch of transactions. We've done 1,000+ transactions. It has allowed us to effectively problem solve because of all the crazy things we've seen. And it obviously stinks when that happens with a client, whether they're being taken advantage of or, sometimes when the client's just trying to take advantage of a situation themselves, whether it be ethically right or wrong or morally right or wrong or contractually right or wrong. We're put in a tough spot sometimes as real estate agents, but they're our client and we have to fulfill our obligation to get them the best deal possible, so long as we're not violating any laws or ethical practices on our part that oversee our licensure. So when we come back, I want to talk about the flip side of this. I want to talk about something called a post-closing occupancy agreement. If you're a seller and you need a little extra time, or maybe you don't want to start packing up your things until the cash is in the bank and you're okay with renting back the property for a while, I'm going to talk about post-closing occupancy agreements, or at least delayed closings. So we're going to talk about that when we come back right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. And remember to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like to talk with my team about helping you buy or sell real estate. My number is 843-345-1273. Call or text that number or go to listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, Charleston. We'll be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm Brian Beatty, and our conversation about real estate continues. We're talking this morning really about a few things, but we just finished talking about moving into a property before closing. If you're a buyer and you need to get into the house before closing occurs, what do you need to know? What does a seller need to know? And does that work out? More often than not, yes, but are there some horror stories? Of course. What I want to talk about now is a seller staying in a home after closing. We call it a post-closing occupancy agreement. Now, let's just talk for a little bit about the idea of selling your property without really knowing where you're going. You don't have somewhere else that you've already purchased. You don't have anything else under contract. And unless you're either okay with renting a place for a while or have someone you can stay with, most people like the idea of identifying an area at a very minimum before they decide to sell. And some want to find the house they want to buy before they'll sell their home. To them, they don't want to have interest. They don't really have any interest in selling unless they can buy what they want. And by the way, I've been in that position. Others know that they need to sell because they're getting married, or they have a growing family, or they're empty nesters, they're retiring, they're getting a new job, they lost their job. The house is too big, or it's just too much to maintain. You name it, the house they have no longer works for them, and they want to sell, and they want to capitalize on current market conditions. So how do people get over the fear of selling without knowing where they're going? How do you get over that fear of being homeless? Does it make sense to even do that? Selling their home and having nowhere to go is always a challenge. It's going to be a more stressful transaction. So let's just talk about that for a minute. The first thing that I would say is start by interviewing and hire a real estate agent that can help you come up with a game plan. It doesn't cost you anything to have us help you strategize. Let us earn our commission by demonstrating our value. So many people just jump right into things, and they start looking at random properties. They register on a bunch of websites for home evaluation reports. Then the next thing they know, they're either getting bombarded with phone calls, emails, and text messages from a bunch of real estate agents, or they met an agent and they say, "Oh, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing." They may or may not be the best choice for you as an agent, but they were in the right place at the right time, and so they stand a great shot of earning your business simply by being present. Because after all, we as a society kind of value convenience, right? So much of what we do is we have to have it done now, and we're not willing to take the time to investigate and determine whether or not every decision we make is the ultimate best decision. If it's convenient and it seems reasonable, we'll do it, regardless of whether it's the best thing for us or not. I mean, the example that I would draw from would be, it's kind of like me saying to my wife, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? And she's like, let's just pick up some Chick-fil-A. It's easy. Even though we both know we're trying to eat healthier, we're trying to lose a little bit of weight. If you want to be lazy and grab fast food for dinner one night, go for it. We all do it, I think. But don't be lazy when it comes to the process of hiring a real estate agent. Now, I know that I'm more passionate about this than maybe you might be, but I have seen so many people hire somebody and just be okay with their mediocre performance or the mediocre results that they got. It's an important process, buying and selling real estate. A lot of your money, the most amount of money that most people have is the equity in their home. You have to protect it. You have to make sure that the person that's working with you protects it. The second thing I'll say is understand that it's hard for buyers to get their offer accepted contingent upon the sale of their house if that buyer's home isn't even on the market yet. Thinking about it from the seller's perspective, they might say something like, hold on, it just took me 3 months on the market, and I'm finally now getting an offer, but they have to sell their house, and they're not even on the market yet. Most of the time, buyers will list and then look for a home to purchase. So let's just go through some of these options that you would have if you're a seller. First of all, if you're going to sell your house and you haven't identified a replacement property yet, you need to understand that you don't necessarily have to accept an offer. Having said that, you should not put your property on the market if you have not identified a price where, hey, if I can sell my house for this much, then yeah, it makes sense for me to sell and find a month-to-month rental while I'm finding something to purchase. If someone's willing to pay me cash and pay that price, and that price is reasonable and the market can support it, boom, gone, I'm out of here, I'm taking the money and I'm running. But if you are not comfortable with that situation, no sense in putting your property on the market yet. Okay? So you don't have to accept the offer. And technically speaking, if someone makes you a full price cash offer with no contingencies and they give you everything you want, does it really make sense to reject it and not go with it? That's number one. Number two would just be an extended closing. We've got buyers that are looking that might not necessarily need to move in 30 days from now. The average lifespan of an internet shopper, by the way, for real estate is 13 months. So if we have language on our listing that says sellers would prefer an extended closing, maybe that matches up perfectly well with a buyer, especially this time of year. We're middle of March. If somebody puts their home on the market and they're looking to close, in the summer when the kids get out of school and, they want to have a little bit of time in the house to fix it up before the school, before school starts back up again, that might work perfectly well. And we see that a lot this time of year. So you could just do an extended closing, which buys you more time to find a replacement property. The other thing that you can do is you can put a home under contract and you could lease that property while you're waiting to sell your house. I don't suggest that, but it's an option. The fourth option would be that you could list your home and you could say that the sale of your home is contingent upon you, the seller, finding a replacement property. So in other words, you could have a buyer put your home under contract and you could add a clause to that contract that says, I will accept your offer. This house is yours. However, I have 10 business days to go out into the market and find something that I like enough to put an offer on that will be accepted. And if I can't find a property within 10 business days that fits that criteria, then the deal is off and I'll give you your earnest money back. And by the way, the inspections and all of that stuff won't start until I find a replacement property so that we're not wasting the buyer's money unnecessarily, which they'll appreciate. But it gives you, the seller, the ability to say, okay, if somebody's going to pay me this much for my house and I'm taking advantage of the market, and if I look around and there's hardly anything else available and the timing is right, it makes sense for me to do this because reason stands to believe more properties are coming on the market. There will be something out there that I like. Now, obviously, don't go into this process blind. You have to look at some options. And one great thing that you can do with your real estate agent is look at the things that are already under contract or that have sold recently. It will give you a good idea of, okay, if this is the type of home I'm looking for, this is how much it should cost within reason. And if there have been a bunch of them that have been put under contract and sold over the past few months, then of course reason stands to believe something similar to it will be coming on the market shortly. It says, statistics say that for every home that sells, 3 more people become interested in selling within a 6-month period. So that's option number 4, is to just put a contingency in your contract that says, hey, I have a certain amount of time to find a replacement property. And if I can't, you get your earnest money back, no deal. But if I do, then great, we're thumbs up and we're moving forward. The last thing you can do is a sale with a leaseback. You close on the property. Sellers, you have cash in the bank. You no longer have to put a home sale contingency on an offer you make to another seller. You also have a certain amount of time in the house so that you're not packing up your things unnecessarily. You've got the cash in the bank. Closing has occurred. And that gives you the peace of mind to go ahead and pay those movers or do whatever it is you have to do to move out of the house. It's a very attractive option for a lot of sellers, but it doesn't always fit with buyers' timelines. That's the problem. The majority of the people that are looking to buy want to buy something and move into it. It's not that they're uncomfortable with the idea of a seller staying in the house for a few days afterward. It's just that they don't have anywhere else to go, and they're certainly not going to live in a hotel while you live in the home that they just bought. Now, of course, we're going to have to identify an amount of money for you to pay on a daily basis to stay in the house. We're going to have to do things like a security deposit and a walkthrough, and they're going to state that, you have to maintain insurance on the property and all sorts of little things. It's in an addendum that's actually provided to us by the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors and the South Carolina Association of Realtors that spells all that stuff out. So everything is covered. It's basically like a mini rental agreement for a few days. But that is a fantastic option for sellers that want to sell their home. They'd like a little bit more time once it closes to get everything buttoned up and to move with confidence. There's nothing worse, and I coach my clients on this all the time, is we have to get through as many of these contingencies in the contract as possible. Do not immediately go and put a down payment on a place to rent, the day after we put your home under contract, because we still have to do the inspection and the termite inspection and the appraisal, and the buyer has to get financing, and we still have to make sure that the title work is clear, and all these things have to happen in order for closing to occur. And I'm thankful that my clients listen to me because, we hear stories all the time of, the seller got into a situation where, she went and she rented a place, and she still owns this home, and now she's liable for rental payments plus her security deposit, which she's going to lose, plus she's making mortgage payments and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a tough situation. So that's kind of a story for a different time. But as far as selling your property with a leaseback agreement is concerned, it's a very interesting and attractive option for sellers. You just have to find a buyer that's willing to play ball with it. So there are 5 different options you have as a seller that are considered, kind of alternate closing strategies that would allow you to maybe look at things a little bit differently if you're one of those people that hasn't necessarily found that property you want to buy yet, but you want to sell. You want to take advantage of this market. And I'll tell you, there are a bunch of folks that I have worked with over the course of the past few weeks, and we're looking at the properties compared to theirs, ones that are under contract, ones that have sold, and ones that are on the market. And there have been a few instances in popular neighborhoods where they are literally the only thing that would be on the market in that price range or with that square footage or with those features. There really, truly is a shortage of inventory. So you as a seller have this amazing opportunity to take advantage of that, to take advantage of the market. And we can work with you to make sure that you're protected contractually in the event you want to sell your home and you don't have anywhere that you necessarily need to go yet. So if that's something we can help you with, feel free to give me a call, 843-345-1273, 345-1273. That's my cell. Call or text that number. Or you can go to listingsincharleston.com, learn more about us, send me something through the contact tab. Of course, you can listen to radio shows and learn more about me. Also on my website, and as I mentioned last program, we are offering to pay for your pre-listing inspection if you list your home with the Brian Beatty team this year. So yet another incentive that we offer to our listeners to help you sell your home for top dollar. So stick around. When we come back, we're going to talk about negotiation strategies, lowball offers, when to make them, should you make them, should you reject it, should you counter it. We're going to talk about all that when we come back. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. The discussion continues here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I want to talk now about rejecting offers, lowball offers, what to do with them. Do you negotiate them? Do you just reject them? If you're a buyer, does it make sense to make a lowball offer if you know it's a lowball offer? Is there an appropriate time to do that? Should you just not do it? Let me answer some of those questions for you. So, buyers, in my opinion, you can make a low offer, not a ridiculously low offer. We're not talking like 25% off of the asking price like some of these buyers do on my listings. And it's always an interesting and exciting conversation. I'll put it that way with the other agent when that happens. But buyers, make a low offer if the home needs a lot of work and or if it's been listed for several months or more. I mean, check the history. Zillow offers a pricing history. Realtor.com offers a pricing history. And then we in the MLS, real estate agents only have access to the MLS. And so we get to see the history for every single property if it has ever appeared in the MLS at any given point in time. We get to see for each listing how many times they reduced the price. When did they reduce the price? By how much did they reduce the price? Did they reduce the price at all? If a seller is on the market for a year at the same price in a market where the average days on market is 30 to 45 days, guess what? They're overpriced, or something is very wrong with the property. I can only blame the agent so much on the marketing side of things, because truth be told, your agent doesn't have to be a marketing guru to sell your property if it's priced well. Now, when they're a marketing guru, and that's something that I would like to think my team is, it helps you sell your home faster and for more money, but you can still get the deal done if you post a property with iPhone photos and basically no marketing other than putting it in the MLS. If you set a really attractive price, if it's worth $500 and you list it at $450, it's probably going to sell regardless of the marketing that agent does, because people want it, because they understand value. Is that the best thing for you as a seller? Obviously not. But on the flip side, if it's worth $500 and you're listed at $575 and it hasn't moved off that price for a year, still on the market a year later, a lowball offer might be construed by the seller as a lowball offer. It might just be closer to what the property's worth. Now, if it's worth $500, it's listed at $575 and you offer $400, yeah, that's a tough conversation. That's a challenging negotiation. What do you do in those situations? I'll answer that in just a second. But buyers, you can also make a low offer if the seller, again, is clearly overpriced, which there are a lot of in this market. Sellers see properties selling quickly and they see them selling for more money than they thought homes in their area would be selling for. So they get greedy. They ask too much money for their house, and that can deter serious buyers. It's okay to overprice a house within reason if you're in good condition and the agent is marketing the home well and there's a limited inventory you're competing with. But you also have to understand that overpriced listings create more overpriced listings. If I went into a neighborhood that had a few properties that weren't being marketed well, and I sold them for almost the exact same price they were being marketed at with other agents, and I got several deals done because we applied our marketing plan. We found the buyers and we connected them with our buyer agents, and we got the deal done. But that's not always the case. Sellers see asking prices, they list it for more. Their neighbor down the street lists it for more. Their neighbor lists it for more. And then all of a sudden you've got a bunch of properties in a particular area or price range that aren't selling because the majority of them are overpriced. And remember, unless a buyer specifically wants to be in your neighborhood as part of their list of requirements in the new home they're going to buy, they're going to be looking in other neighborhoods and in some cases other areas entirely. I mean, in other words, someone looking for a high dollar home in Mount Pleasant might also be looking on Daniel Island or Isle of Palms or even downtown. That's why it's the agent's job to fully understand the market. Who are you competing with? And how does your home differentiate from the competition? And why should a buyer want to buy your home versus any other home they're going to look at? Now, if you're a seller, your gut reaction is to be offended at a lowball offer and to immediately shut down that idea of negotiating and just reject the offer because you think that they're an unreasonable buyer. And I'll tell you that I had a very well-priced home in Mount Pleasant. I think we priced it. This is a few years ago. I'm just trying to draw things that aren't so current because I don't want to talk about current or recently closed clients. But a few years ago, I had a very well-priced home in Snee Farm. And I think we priced it at $500. It was worth every penny of what we were asking. We received an offer, and it was for about 10% below what we were asking, and they were asking for closing costs, and they had a home to sell. And when the offer was submitted, the buyer agent typed in a message in there, and it said, "Please encourage your clients to counter." In other words, the buyers knew their offer was ridiculous, but apparently the buyer, is in their early 30s and comes from a family of quote unquote business people. and they suggested they lowball the sellers. Well, when you do that as a buyer, you run the risk of losing out on a home that you might actually want to own. I mean, if there's absolutely no way the seller is going to accept that offer, make a stronger one. Negotiate. Don't run the risk of having your offer get rejected because you're of the opinion, well, you never know unless you ask. Might as well start here. I mean, in really hot areas of our market, that's just simply not going to fly. You may, once in every 200 offers, find a seller that's really motivated and might take that kind of an offer or sell close to the amount that you've offered based on, some sort of extreme motivation to sell. But more often than not, those are just going to get rejected. And so, think about this too. Who makes low ball offers? Mostly investors. But they're making offers left and right. I mean, sometimes they're sending out multiple offers at once and just kind of blanketing in an area or a price range with a bunch of lowball offers to see who responds. And if you're a serious buyer and you find a home you love, my suggestion is to make a serious offer. And I have a bunch of these kinds of stories. I mean, I've been doing this for, 12 years. We've done about 1,000 transactions. So I can very comfortably say I've seen just about everything. I still get surprised. Believe me, there something comes up every once in a while. I'm just like, what? Okay, well, here's what we do. We figure it out. But there was a seller I was working with about a year and a half ago. Very nice waterfront home in Mount Pleasant. And we received an offer. It was about 25% less than the asking price. We were listed at 1.4. They offered $1 million. Obviously, the seller's not going to take that. It took a lot of time to get the seller to even consider responding to it. But I positioned it this way. I said, okay, what is a counteroffer that we can make where if the buyer takes that counteroffer, you still feel like you've won the negotiation, but it allows us to keep this conversation rolling. You just never know. So we took $50,000 off the price because we were going to reduce the price anyways. It had been at that price a little while. We were going to reduce it. So it wasn't going to be far off of what we were going to reduce it to. And the buyers took it. There wasn't even any back and forth. They just took the counteroffer and the seller was shocked. And so that is, for me, one of the stories that I share because you truly just never know. Sometimes buyers just have to get that stuff out of their system. They just do. It's not logical. I guess it is from the buyer's point of view. Hey, you never know unless you ask. We don't even know where to start negotiating. We know the sellers probably aren't going to take it, but we might as well start here. If you go too low, you just piss the sellers off. So if you're a seller, it's important not to get caught up in the emotions of negotiating a deal, despite how difficult they can sometimes be. Remember, real estate is an emotional process. The buyer isn't buying a pair of jeans. They're buying a home to create memories in. So as best you can, try and look past the inevitable stupidity of some of these buyers that are going to make you lowball offers and always try to make the deal work. I just tell sellers, look, let's just counter. Let's counter with something that is so heavily weighted in the seller's favor. Put everything on that counteroffer that you want as a seller, but give just a tiny, tiny bit, either on price or terms. And I'll go to the other agent and I'll say, hey, we appreciate the offer. And I know your buyer wants to buy this house, but as you could probably imagine, the offer that was made is just way too low. And I have struggled to get the sellers to even respond to the offer rather than just reject it entirely. So we're going to take a few $1,000s off the price just to see if your buyers are really interested and want to buy this house. And if your buyer's response isn't extremely attractive to us, then the conversation's over. We're not going to invest any more time into this process. So you have to come back to us with an acceptance here. We are looking for you to take this deal. Now, oftentimes they don't take the deal. They'll come back, though, with something much more reasonable. But we've put them on notice, saying, look, we're not going to play the game. We're going to give you one more shot to negotiate this deal. But you need to understand that we are not desperate. We're not going to be playing these games. And we need to see something much, much better from you in order to move this conversation forward. And it works. But you as a seller have to be open to getting over the fact that you're visibly offended by that lowball offer. Sellers tend to think that a buyer's lowball offer is a reflection of what they think that home is worth. Not necessarily. They're just trying to get a deal on it. When you go to buy a home, you might do the same. Maybe not to that extreme, but every buyer wants a deal, just like every seller wants full value. So that's my little tip, is to counter, but have it be a counter that's so heavily weighted in favor of the seller, while also putting the buyer on notice that it forces them to either accept or come back with an extremely attractive counteroffer. And if they don't, then they're clearly not the buyer for you. So stick around. We've got a little bit more to discuss right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And again, if you'd like to reach out to me to help you sell your home, give me a call at 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273. Or go to listingsincharleston.com. We have a full-scale marketing plan that, in my opinion, is the best in the Low Country. We offer a free pre-listing inspection if you list your home with us, variable commission plans, all that fun stuff. So give me a call, 843-345-1273, or text that number, and we'll talk about it. Stick around, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I want to spend just the last few minutes of this program talking about a few tips that can help you sell your home this year and either make more money or at least make the process simpler for you. I'm all about making things easy on people. And the first thing that I'd like to say is that if you're thinking about selling your house, allow us to walk through the house with you first before you decide to start fixing it up to prepare it for sale. Don't wait until after you've done repairs and spent a bunch of time and money fixing the property up. Let me help you determine where to get the biggest bang for your buck and what's necessary and what is unnecessary. One of the things that we do on my team, really, so we do a few things, obviously, but the first thing we do is, especially this year, we will pay for your pre-listing inspection. Let's identify those things that absolutely have to be done that will be a hindrance to the sale or that will cost you money in the long run. And we're not necessarily going to focus on all the little things. We're going to focus on those big ticket items that could cost you an arm and a leg when it comes time to close. Let's at least identify those issues and either fix them now or at least account for that in our budget when we're pricing your property. The other thing that we do is we do a free staging consultation with anybody that lists their home with us. Let's look at your property and determine, okay, can we use the furniture and the things inside this house to maybe rearrange some things, make the room look bigger? Should we take anything away? Should we add anything? It's very low cost, very low impact, but I have a fantastic designer/decorator that comes through and will tell you exactly what to do and give you a punch list of things that these are the things that you should do. These are the things that aren't as important that would be helpful. And so those are some things that we do to help people prepare to sell their property. The other thing that I want to mention really quickly is that when you're interviewing an agent, especially when you're going to sell your house, make sure that agent understands how to pre-qualify a showing. One of the things on my team that we are very passionate about is making sure that if we have a showing scheduled on your house, that buyer is in a position where if they walk through the house and they like what they see, that they are in a position to make an offer. We're not showing homes where somebody that lives there, has 3 kids and a dog and, the dad works all day and the mom's home with the kids and she's got to pile everybody into the car and leave for an hour, plus clean the house. It gets really old really fast if some people start walking through the house that have no business being there in the first place. So pre-qualification on showings is something we take very seriously. It's something that you should be asking about when you interview your real estate agent because your time is valuable. And obviously ours is too, because we don't want to waste time with people that can't buy. But a very helpful tip for you, pre-qualify the showings. Make sure your agent is doing that for you. And I wish that I had more time to talk about this in greater detail, but I'm out of time this morning. So if you'd like to reach out to me to talk about real estate in greater detail, call or text 843-345-1273. That's 345-1273, or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Have a great weekend, and thanks for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.